Today you'll see a timeless classic that I think looks great on everyone. It's for knit fabrics and it's a real wrap top. I've also made a super special dress out of these patterns and it's my birthday dress. I think it's one of the best ever. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I have some neat sewing to share today. It is my birthday, I'm 44 years old and it's a really happy day, but more about my birthday later. Today what I have for you is the Coimbra wrap top from Itch to Stitch. It's a really classic style, I think one that looks great on everyone, and it's a real wrap top. So it's not a fake wrap top, it's actually real. It can open up all the way. There are ties where you put one into one of the side seams and wrap it around. Because the front wraps over, you get a nice V shape right there. The inside of the neckline is finished with a facing, super neat, top stitched. And if you want to, as an option, you can sandwich a collar in between the facing and the neckline. I've done that with one of mine. The front and the back are just a piece. You don't have a separate waist seams, makes the construction easier, and you have a simple long sleeve. Not only is the style pretty, but it's also got an amazing fitting feature. If you are sewing the full bust option, you get a bust dart, and I think that's great. It's always really helpful. Because the Coimbra wrap top is a brand new pattern at Itch to Stitch, it's 20% off through Sunday the 26th of February. So if you like the pattern, you want to give it a go, it's nice to get it for a little bit less. I am going to show you a lot of the sewing so you can have some support. I work really hard to film in a really practical way so that you can really see what's going on if you like video, because the instructions that Kenneth makes are amazing. Every step has a diagram. It's super easy to follow. And don't forget to use my affiliate link. I do make a small commission back, and that supports the work that I do here on YouTube. It is designed for knit fabric, so this won't work with a woven fabric. It just won't fit, so don't even try it. So look for knit fabrics have 50% stretch both horizontally and vertically. That will give you the correct fit. Now I've put a list here of some examples that I think are the ones that are going to work nicely, like French terry, cotton lycra, rib knit. Rayon French terry I think would be amazing. It's a little heavier than the typical rayon spandex. Double brush poly is easy to work with. I think a sweater knit would be amazing, just as long as it's not too heavy, not too bulky, and has the correct stretch and recovery. Now I've put little asterisks on rayon spandex, bamboo spandex, modal spandex, because I would help myself along with a lot of hand basting in that case. I would not rush it. Same as ITY. I think you could make this in ITY. You just have to be careful about your interfacing, you know, getting that top stitching of the facing right, just being careful with the way you're sewing so that you're not stretching out your fabric and your seams come out wavy. So I think these last two that I'm mentioning are possible. It would just take a little bit of extra work. Now ones that I would definitely not even touch for this design are Ponte Roma, Liverpool, Scuba. Some crepe knits can be quite heavy. I think it would be way too bulky, and the crossover you would see the details of the facings, and I just think it wouldn't sit right. I think you do need a bit of softness and just a lighter weight fabrics, light to medium weight, but not heavier than that, in my opinion. You need to interface the facings, so you need interfacing that will stretch also. They do sell those, tricot knit interfacing. That's the one that is going to work the best. I have two to share, and I love just thinking out of the box and making one for summer and one for winter using the same pattern, because patterns can be versatile like that. And the fact that this has a long sleeve doesn't mean that you can't make it a short sleeve yourself. That is something that you could do easily, and then you just have a summer top, or just leave the sleeves out and put some binding, and then you can have a sleeveless one. For my winter version, I've chosen a black sweater knit. Light to medium weight, nice stretch and recovery, super soft. And I know it's black, I know it's basic, but those are the ones that get worn the most, and those are the pieces I like. I love black. I love making things with black because they can just go over whatever colorful things I have. So that is a really nice one that I'm really excited to share. I made that one as per the pattern, no changes, and I did add the collar version to that one. And for my summer version, this is where I'm making my special birthday dress, but I'll talk about the pattern changes in a sec. This one is a really special ITY I bought in Chile this summer with my dad. It's very beautiful, just gorgeous. Like, it's got meat written all over it. The sizing's really good, 00 to 40 US, goes up to a hip of 62. And you have a regular bust option and a full bust option. So if you measure the difference between your high bust and your full bust, if it's 3 inches or more, the full bust option with the buster is going to give you a better fit. If you are sewing AA, A or B cup, then the regular bust option would work best. I'm a C cup, so I'm at that 3-inch mark, and from my previous experience sewing the full bust option in each to stitch, it's a really great fit for me. It's just amazing. I'm always gonna really enjoy a dart if it's there. I think it can really improve the fit when there's more volume there on the bust. Whether it's a knit or a woven, I just wish more knit styles had darts because they really do help. This is a fitted design. It's not a loose design that's going to drape over your hip. There's a little bit of negative ease around the bust, and it has to be like that so that everything sits nice and flush against your chest or this neckline area. If there was positive ease around here, and if you wanted to size up, for example, you might end up with gaping here and a crossover that just ends up being too low and showing too much. At the waist, you know, you can regulate that with how much you overlap it and how tight you do your ties. But in theory, you have about 3 inches of positive ease, and at the hips, a little less than 1 inch. So it does come close to the body, but that's fine. That's why we work with stretchy fabric, you know. I made a size 14 with a full bust. I kept the 14 up to the waist, and then from the waist to the hips, I blended up to a 16. Now about the length, you also find finished length measurements for the sizes. And just looking at that and what I like in proportion to my height, I did add 1.5 inches to the front and the back pieces, 1 inch to the sleeve. Now, if you do add length there, always remember you have a little facing that you see there. You need to make the change there as well. If you're petite, Kenneth has provided 2 shorten and lengthen lines on the pattern pieces because that can really help you decide where you want to take away length or add length. So in this area where you have the wrap area, if you are petite, you might want to take away from there so that you get your crossover in the right spot and not too low. So that's something to think about. And if you do that, you need to make the change to the facing that goes on this side as well. There are really good diagrams in the instructions that show you how to adjust if you're going to use that shorten and lengthen line at this area. I didn't need to do that. I just used the lower one at the hips. For the dress hack, it's so easy. I used the pattern pieces I had already modified. You know, so easy when you've already made a top, because I put my top on. I went over to my husband with a measuring tape, and he measured from the edge of the hem at the front how much more I needed for this to hit above the knee. He told me that was 38 centimeters, which is about 15 inches-ish, around there. So it gave me a really good starting point to just add and just go all the way straight down. It's not A-line, you just keep the shape going straight down. That's what I did to the front and the back. I added that same amount of length to the little facing piece, the front facing piece. Now for the sleeveless one, I just added a bit of height to the armhole here. I basically just cut it about 5/8 of an inch higher right there, and then just coming back to the regular line where the notches for the sleeves are. That's all. Very, very easy. And then I just cut out my own binding and add that on at the very end. I'll leave you linked below my masterclass on knit bindings, because there's so many ways you can do that, and it gives you a lot of freedom to be able to modify patterns like this, where this didn't have a sleeveless option, but you know I'm always going to make a sleeveless option because it's just so hot. I like my arms nice and free, and I love sleeveless dresses. For the sewing, I have filmed almost all of it. I'm leaving the sleeves out because I usually just do that at the very end. I don't set them in on the flat. I do them on the round. Otherwise, you'll see the facings, the shoulders, you know, the side seams are not the same. The left and the right, there is a little difference there. You'll see the ties, the mitered corners. A really nice, fun clip. It's not too long, so let's hop in and make the Coimbra wrap top. This is the back piece of the top, and I'm gonna fuse a little bit of interfacing onto the shoulder area so that it's stable. This is very lightweight, fusible, non-stretch. I cut in little strips myself. So now this has eliminated the stretch in the shoulder area. These are the pattern pieces for the Coimbra top. The back is simple, it's just cut on the fold. That is the front piece. It is wider because this is a wrap top, and this is gonna wrap over itself, of course. I have the full bust option, so you can see I have a dart marked there with chalk. Now the way the neckline is going to be finished is with facings, and that is the back neck facing, this is the front neck facing, and this is the front facing. So these two are going to be attached, and that's what's going to give you that shape right here. Over there you see a collar. This is optional, you don't have to sew it in, but I'm going to do it with mine. These last 4 pieces I mentioned are the ones that are interfaced: the collar, these 2 facings, and that facing right there. You know I like to block fuse, and I did it in the same way. I just cut out a piece of fabric slightly larger than my piece, interface the fabric first, then place my pattern piece, and then cut it out. And one thing I've done with this back, you see that on the side seam there's an R right there? That means it's the right wear side. I determined that by taking this piece of fabric and putting it on my back as you would wear it, and that's where I put a pin on the right side and then I wrote it there. On the other side you'll find the left, and that's really important because there's something that we need to do on the side. That way you need to know what the right and the left wear side, and I find it easier to figure out now. Mark it and then you don't have to think about it. Here we have the long sleeve. There's nothing different about that one. And this is the tie. It's a really long piece and this is the end here. You see that there's a line there. That means that one of these is going to be shorter than the other. The tie that's going to go on your left wear side, that's going to be shorter, and the one that's going to go on the right is going to be longer. So I've marked my line there so that later on I know I need to cut one shorter and leave the other one longer. I'm using a sweater knit, so I'm going to use a jersey needle number 90. There are some areas where I'm going to go through a few layers with the bands. So that is the one I think is okay. My sweater knit is not too light also. I will be using the sewing machine. I'll use a narrow zigzag. That's a zigzag. Narrow means it's going to be almost flat. So that is almost flat. And here the length of the stitch, I'm going to use anywhere from 2.5 to 3. For the main seams, I'll use this. If the thickness is increased by a few layers, I'll just increase it to 3 and I'll just keep changing it like that. Only the full bust piece has the bust start. So if yours doesn't have it, then you just skip this step. I'm just getting both of these out of the way. I always start from the dart point and go to the wider part. That's how I've been doing it for years. I think you can control where the needle starts on the edge easier and you get a neater dart point. That's the reason I do it like that. Here is the back piece, and now I've just put the front pieces together. Here at the shoulders, right sides together, and this is what we sew next. I'm going to be sewing with the interface side on the top because it's the more stable side. That's how I can prevent this layer that's not interfaced from stretching out when I sew. And I'm using a 3/8 seam allowance with my narrow zigzag, and then I'll be cleaning it up with a serger. You could in theory just sew this on the serger if you wanted, but then you would have to trim some seam allowance away when you're serging so you can respect the total 3/8 seam allowance. I've cut my strips 1/2 inch wide, so they are a tiny bit wider than the 3/8 seam allowance I'm going to use for the shoulder seams. You can see where I interfaced, and you can see why I did a 1/2 inch strip there. That's to make sure I was going to catch the interfacing when I sewed on this. After this, we serge the edge, and I'm not trimming anything away. The collar is optional. I'm doing it on this one, and we have 2 layers. One that's interfaced, which is the one I have on the top, and the one on the bottom isn't interfaced. Here you have notches, and these will match the neckline, so you know that these are going to be the areas that need to be left raw. And now we need to sew the collar pieces together like all the collars, and then flip it and do some top stitching. Okay, I have flipped the collar to the other side. I have some hand basting just so I could roll the seam nice and neat. I find it easier to do than just do that at the iron where I'm trying to roll the seam and burn my fingers. And I'm just going to keep that hand basting there. I'm going to remove it after I've done the top stitching. So top stitching is optional. I think this fabric can handle it. I'm going to just make sure that I have the interface layer on the top, which is the more stable one. I've brought the top back. We had sewn the shoulder seams. I've put a pin on the center back. The fabric is right sides up, and when you go off to the front, you're going to find a little notch right there. That's a reference for the collar if you're going to use the collar. And now on the collar piece, we had notches in here, but they got lost in there, so I just put pins. So it's basically aligning the center back and aligning to the shoulder seams there, and then continuing until we get to that little mark right here, and that's where the end of the collar is going to go. Then we baste. I'm actually going to do it by hand, just easier. easier. Okay, I've hand basted it smaller than 3/8 seam allowance we're going to use in a sec, and I've included that little bit there so it doesn't move. You can see that the collar matches the notch on the front neckline, and then those notches were matching the shoulder seams, and then the collar over here is matching the notch right there. So we'll put all this aside and now assemble the facings. This is the back neckline facing. I have the chalk mark symbolize the wrong side, so I'm just going to put this one right sides up here. And then we have two sets of facings, one that's really long and curved and one that's short and straight. The really long and curved one that you want now, and right here you have a notch on these short edges, and on this long curved facing you're going to have two notches on one end and a single notch on the other end, so that lets you know that the single notch here is the one that goes right there. So these are wrong sides up, the facings here are right sides together, and you can see that the shape of these facings is going to come to the inside. When we match these notches, if I put a pin through here, I need to match it with the one underneath. You're going to see that you get a little bit of excess there, but when we sew it at 3/8 it's fine. This side too, you get that little tag. So that's the first step. Now when you keep going down, you can have these slanted edges that have these double notches right there, and these are going to match the front facings. These are the straight pieces. You can see the two little notches are going to match, and you're going to have this shape coming out like this. Make sure you get that right. Make sure you don't have them the other way, because this is the shape you want. And now we're going to put these right sides together, and we're also going to sew these. So we have 4 little seams to sew. I have already sewn the ties and flipped them right sides out and pressed them, so they're really nice and neat. They end up in a point like this, and you can see I've got a shorter one and a longer one. This is the shorter one, the one that we're going to do first, and it's going to go on the left wearer side. This is one of the front pieces, and I've actually labeled in here that this is the left as worn, so we have an L there. So we'll just keep the fabric right sides up like this, and we're going to take our left tie. I also labeled that one. We want the angle to be going down like this, basically where the seam is going towards the bottom. There is a notch here on this side, so here's a closer look. You can see the notch on this side that's going to match the tie at the bottom right here. So from the tie up you're going to have a little bit of space, but there's going to be a facing right there, so that has to be like that. Now we do the same thing with the right side. Here I have written R. Here is my right tie, it's got the R there. I've got the seam at the bottom, and I'm going to align this one here too. And on both sides we're just going to baste that in place so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so we already had the collar there basted on. The facing has all been assembled. I went ahead and serged the outer edge of the facing, as you can see there. We're basically sandwiching the collar between the neckline and the facing. The facing is right sides together with the neckline, but with the collar inside. And if you move this down further, you'll see that that's just 2 layers there. But here we have the collar in between. On the facings, you had that notch right there also that matches the one on the back. In there is the reference for the collar to start, and then you match the shoulder seams of the facings to the neckline right here, and then you start going all the way down. You match all of this, and then you find this little angle. We had already basted the tie in there, and then the facing goes straight down and it goes all the way to the bottom. So it's a pretty long seam, doing everything with a narrow zigzag, and we'll just sew all of these at 3/8. Here where we have the angle and we have the tie coming out, I'm just going to sew up to here. I'm not going to try and go through there. I'm going to go as close as I can and then start right here and keep going. Looks a little bit messy, but I've got the top right here with the wrong sides up. Now you could have sewn the sleeves in on the flat and then sew the sleeve and the side seam in one go if you want to. I prefer to sew the side seam separately and the sleeves separately. I've actually already sewn the sleeves, so I'm going to be sewing these on the round at the last stage. I've even got my hem basted up. That's going to be the last thing I do. Remember, it was super important for me to mark which was the right and the left wearer's side. So you can see right here, the left wearer's side seam, you sew it like normal. Right, I've serged it and sewn it, but the right is different. For the right, I have serged the edges separately because these are going to be left open. And right here, you'll find these little notches that are going to be a gap for the tie to go through. So we basically need to sew from here, stop there, reinforce, start there, reinforce, and then all the way down, and we're going to be left with a gap. Serging these separately allows you to do that neatly. I've just gone ahead and sewed that off camera. You can see that there's a little gap, and this is where the tie is going to go through. Now after doing that, extend it, serge right there, serge right on top of that seam, and go all the way across the bottom. That's if you want to serge. If you're not doing that, then don't do it, but I did want to do it definitely. And now we're going to do mitered corners. I'm going to measure the facing, so from the seam to the edge is 1¼ inches. So basically I'm going to do the hem the same, 1¼ inches. So after measuring it, I'm going to turn these to the wrong side. This is 1¼ so I'm going to measure double of that. 1¼ times 2 is 2½, and that's what I'm going to measure from this corner up and make a mark, and then here as well. And then I'm going to do a diagonal line. I'm going to use the same tape measure and go from mark to mark. And now we're going to fold this from the corner like that. We're going to match our lines. So when I put my pin through here, I want to come out on the other line. So I'm going to start right where that seam is and go across. Then we can trim away and flip it, and we'll have the mitered corner. And there we have our mitered corner. That includes the facing from the front right here and the hem. You do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to just hand baste my hem. And then the last step now is to tidy up this facing. You can see that the tie comes from within the facing right here. So I'm just going to take my sweet time and hand baste it down, give it a nice little press, and then it's a lot of top stitching to finish. The sun was really starting to blast me, so I had to move to another place. I did decide to add on the collar to this one because it's a solid. I would actually only add it if I was doing this in a solid, because I think with a print it would get lost and you wouldn't really be able to see it. So that's why I have the collar right there. I think it's really nice. You can see this is finished with facings. I think the height at which this wraps fits really well for my body. You know, I didn't need to change the position of my dart right here. It's the original placement. I didn't need to raise it or lower it. Usually with wovens, I do have to change it and lower it, but with knits it tends to be just right, you know, because there's some vertical stretch in the fabric as well. Now these aren't garments that have a lot of appeal here on the hanger. They look quite messy, right? The way you wear it is that you tuck the left side of you inside, and this tie that's there is the one that comes out of the side seam that's on the right side of you right there. And that's how you start wrapping around the ties, so that's how it goes. And then the right side is the one that overlaps over the front. And then this tie goes around the back and then comes over there. That's why the left tie that's over here is a little shorter, because it doesn't wrap around as much as the one on the right. Twin needle hem, no drama there. I think the mitered corner here at the bottom of the center front is super neat. This is the facing and that's the hem. Back is super simple. It's just one piece on the fold. I hope you saw how easy it was to put together. It's not a complex sew. Now the only thing that would make it a bit more lengthy if you wanted to was all the hand basting, and I never think it's a waste of time. I think the extra minutes it just takes to baste everything flat, it just will give you peace of mind that when you're doing your top stitching, your facings, your hems are not going to move and wiggle and twist, because, you know, fabrics do that. You're going to see it paired over my purple Castle Point skirt from the So Beautiful book. One of my most special skirts, one of my most precious fabrics. So let's see. This is my Coimbra wrap top from Itch to Stitch. It's for colder weather because I used a lightweight sweater knit. I think having a sweater like this is great because not only are you nice and warm, but the fit is just amazing, not oversized like regular sweaters. I sewed a size 14 with a full bust option. That one has a dart, and I blended out to a 16 at the hip. I added 1.5 inches to the length at the hip area and 1 extra inch to the length of the sleeve. This is a real wrap top, and I've got it paired over my Castle Point skirt from the So beautiful book. Here you can see the ties. You can see the tie comes out of the right side seam and going around the waist. It is a fitted design, so you have less than an inch or room around the hip. That's why you have a knit fabric, mitered corners finish there. Here's a buster that I think is amazing fit for the full bust option. I like where the wrap hits on my chest. I think it's not too high, not too low, it's just right. The neckline is finished with a facing inside, and there's an optional collar which I added on here. I really love the fit. I think it's amazing. I'm gonna love wearing this when it gets cooler. I really love it. You know, I always like to dress up, but I could easily wear this over jeans or wide leg pants, anything really. It's just so versatile. And being black, I know when it gets cooler, I'm gonna feel really dressed up, you know, when I'm so comfortable and I'm also warm. So love that. My birthday dress is a gift to myself, where I make a style that I know suits me, that I know I feel amazing in. I made it sleeveless because it's really hot and I want to wear it now. I chose the best fabric, the best print with all my colors. Ta-da! I love it so much. The only difference here is that I don't have a collar. I just have the facing, so that made the process a little shorter than with the black version. With this one, I used a white interfacing because there's quite a bit of white on the fabric and I didn't really want a black interfacing. I thought maybe it could darken the area. So think about those things. I think having black and white is always really handy. My sleeveless armhole, I did a binding technique where I fold the binding already when I sew it onto the right side, and then I flip it in, and then the edge is already folded and neat. And that is a technique that works really well with ITY because it's a really lightweight fabric. All the rest is the same. You can see that on the right side, the seam allowances are open and that's sewn with the sewing machine. That allows that opening to be really neat. You wouldn't really be able to do that with the serger, so I think you need to keep your sewing machine handy when you're sewing neat fabrics. You can't just do everything with the serger. And I actually use the sewing machine for this quite a lot. When you see this one on, I'm wearing a really fitted slip underneath because it is a thinner fabric, so I didn't want undergarment lines to be seen. And that's something that I do a lot when I use ITY or rayon spandex. I want that extra layer in there, makes me feel better. So you'll see it styled just with shoes and a bag, very, very simple. This is my second Coimbra wrap top, but this time hacked into a dress. Super easy. I just added about 15.5 inches to the front and the back piece. You can see the wrap goes all the way around. I think it's a really safe real wrap dress. Ties on the side are really nice. You can adjust those at your waist, and I love the straight fit here. Because this is for summer, I used an ITY and left the sleeves out. I sewed a size 14 with a full bust option, and I blended out to a 16 at the hip. Here's a closer look at how much this wraps. It goes all the way to the side. I really enjoy this length just above my knee. Everything's the same, it's just a lighter fabric. This one is more simple. It doesn't have the collar. I thought the print wouldn't let you see it. I've still got the bust out from the full bust option, and I think the fit is great. I just added some binding there, and that was a really easy thing to do to the armhole, and I am just so happy to have this dress. It's my birthday dress. I combined my favorite style with my favorite fabric, my favorite colors. I'm 44 years old and I feel amazing in my awesome Coimbra wrap dress hack. And this is gonna be one of my all-time favorite dresses. Really easy to do if you want a nice wrap dress as well. It's such a great gift to myself to make myself an amazing dress that is my favorite style. yeah, I'm just so happy with it. I really love them both. They're both going to serve their purposes in different situations for different climates, and yeah, what can I say? I feel great in these. I think if you've never tried a style like this, you could be missing out, because I think everyone looks great in these. I love that they're adjustable at the waist, so whatever your waist situation is on the day, you can just tighten it, make it tighter or looser, and you just be fine. I love that about wrap dresses, real wrap dresses like this. And I think this one's great because the front crosses all the way over to the side. So I think it's really safe, you know, you're not going to come undone and your dress is not going to open up, you know. Now about my birthday, I'm 44. It's a really good age I'm at right now, and I'm no longer getting sad for adding years to my life. I'm really, really happy and really fulfilled, blessed. And you know, there are things that you start noticing as you add on the years, and there are some health issues that I'm dealing with. So I'm trying to get over those. But otherwise, I'm very, very happy, very content, very satisfied, and I'm really grateful for the support that you give me here on this channel. I never thought I'd have a job like this, and it's like a dream job really, because I do something that I really, really love, and I just pour my heart and soul into it. And I love your feedback. It's really encouraging, and it just helps me keep going. So that is my message for you on my 44th birthday. It's a really great day. Now, in the past, my husband used to take me on fabric shopping sprees, and he did that when I turned 40, 41, 42. Last year when I turned 43, he was traveling, he wasn't here. And this year he's traveling as well. So it'll be really chill. I really don't want to go and do fabric shopping sprees because I have quite a lot of fabric already in my collection. So I'm trying to sew through that. And this year just got a pair of sneakers I'd been wanting for months, and some electronic stuff that I like. So very chill. I just spent it here with my son. He's actually cooking me lunch today, which is going to be a real treat. It'll be a nice day. I will spend some of it with you because I'll be editing this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget that the Coimbra wrap top from Itch to Stitch is 20% off through Sunday the 26th. Find all my links below, and I'll see you again very soon with more sewing. Bye.